my plan today, we're going to talk a little bit about the test format, I think. Oh, never mind.
Good afternoon.
So I think at this point we have finished chapter 6 and 7. So next class we'd be expecting our chapter 6 and 7 test. Your test format from chapter 6, you'll be asked 3 questions. You'll be asked to do one sum and difference identity problem, one power reducing problem, and one half angle problem. From chapter 7, you'll have 4 different types of problems. So you'll have 4 problems where I'm going to give you 3 pieces of information, either sides or angles, and ask you to do 2 things. Tell me what the situation is. Is it angle side angle, or angle angle side, or side side angle, or whatever? And then I will also ask you to tell me the number of triangles for that problem, whether it's 0, 1, or 2. So remember, 3 of the situations are easy, right? For angle side angle, angle angle side, and side angle side, it's just always one triangle, no matter what. For side side side, it'll be 0 or 1 triangle based on what can I do to tell the difference between whether it's 0 triangles or 1 triangle in a side 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 situation. Go ahead.
If the 2 bases are shorter than the hypotenuse.
Great. If the perfect. So if the sum of the 2 legs is greater than the hypotenuse, we have 1 triangle, otherwise 0. And then the SSA case, well, that's the hard one, right? Because there's a bunch of different things that can happen. So you can get all 3 situations coming out of there. My suggestion to you is if we look at the 112 notes, there's 2 cases, and in each of the cases something can happen. And to deal with the ambiguous case, you have to calculate this number and see if it's bigger than 1, less than 1, or equal to 1. My suggestion to you would be all of that kind of stuff just goes onto the note card. I wouldn't try to memorize it. But I will definitely be asking you to do stuff with that. I have 2 solve the triangle problems. So remember, when we do the solve the triangle problems, mainly you're going to be using law of sines or law of cosines. 2 formulas. You think you're going to get one problem that needs you to use one or the other? Yeah, probably. 2 questions where I ask you to find the area of the triangles. Again, we got 2 new area formulas. You have 2 questions. What do you think is going to happen? 1 question for each formula, basically. And then I have 1 question where I give you the SSA case that has 2 triangles, and I'm going to ask you to solve for both triangles. You don't have to verify that it's a 2-triangle case. You just have to solve the 2 triangles that are given, just like in the homework, right, where we did the same thing there. We told you it's a 2-triangle situation. Solve the triangles. Okay. Questions about format or question type or whatever. Is this clear as to what I'm going to ask you to do? I think that's probably pretty clear, I hope. Do you guys have questions on homeworks or anything that we want to talk about here? I mean, it's probably been over a week. No, it's been more than a week, I think, since it's like close to 2 weeks since I've seen you, right? Because I didn't see you last week because I was gone and there was a snow day and Martin Luther King Day.
We're having a quiz, right?
Yeah, but I'm asking if you have questions before we start that. So do you have homework questions on anything that we want to talk about? Will?
Oh, wait, when's the no card due?
I mean, ideally today, by the end of class. I would need it before second hour tomorrow, as the absolute latest. Second hour is taking their test tomorrow. It's the absolute latest.
Do you go over solving for a triangle?
Yeah. Sure. Does anybody? Yeah, that's pretty general. Does anyone have a specific one in there that you're interested in? I can do 2 birds with 1 stone. If not, I can just pick one. It's not a big deal.
that would mostly resonate with
Great response.
So let's say we're going to do 16 here. First thing I'd want to do is look at which situation I'm in. And Nick said this is side, side, side. We can tell right away because we aren't given any angle measures. It's the only one that has no angle measures in it. It's really easy to tell. First thing I have to do for a side, side, side is I have to check to make sure the sum of the two legs is greater than the hypotenuse to make sure the problem's even possible. That worked. So now I'm going to proceed to solve this triangle. Since it's a side, side, side situation, I know I'm going to be using law of cosines to start. Yes?
For the leg plus leg is greater than hypotenuse, it means it's one triangle?
Correct.
Okay.
If it's less than or equal to, it's 0.
Oh.
So we have 3 angles to solve for currently, right? When there's 3 angles remaining to solve, which angle do I need to find first? Biggest angle first. I probably want that on my note card. So in this case, so let's see, angle XYZ. Which angle is going to be the biggest, X, Y, or Z? Y, very good. Why? Because it's the longest side, great. So I'll set up my law of cosine, so I'll have side squared equals other side squared plus other side squared minus 2 times the other 2 sides times cosine of the angle that's opposite. Right? So I have like angle, if I use side Y over here, angle Y is going to go over there. Doesn't matter what the names are. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. So now I'm just going to do like regular like algebra 1 algebra to try to get the Y by itself. So this stuff is being like added to that angle Y, right? To move it to the other side, I have to subtract it. So I subtract 5 squared and 10 squared from both sides. And I'm not going to bother to simplify anything. I'm just going to like just leave it the way I've written it down and let the calculator do all of it. You can simplify it if you wanted to along the way. Typically, I'd recommend not because it's just like one more thing to screw up. So now I have this negative 2 times 5 times 10 times cosine of angle Y. Those 3 numbers, negative 2 times 5 times 10, are all being multiplied to the angle Y. So to move them on to the other side, I have to not subtract, divide, because they're being multiplied, right? This is just like algebra 1 algebra here, guys. It just looks weird, but it's like normal solve for X algebra. And now to get rid of this cosine Y, what do I do? What do I have to do to cancel that out? What's that, Nick? Yeah, cosine inverse. So I do that to both sides. And now I'm going to go to my calculator. So I'll fire this guy up, and I'll do my cosine inverse. And then I'm going to use that horizontal fraction bar command. So alpha y equals, and then option 1. I definitely want to use that here so I can just type this in the way it looks on my sheet of paper. Otherwise, I'm going to need a whole like heap of parentheses, and it's going to get really kind of confusing on how to organize that on my calculator to make sure it's doing what I want it to do. But if I use that horizontal fraction command, I can just type it in the way it looks on my calculator, and I feel pretty good about my ability to do that. So I get 100.95 for y. So I'll go up here, I'm going to write that in. Now with two angles remaining, yes,
So I can just do horizontal fraction, but it's like alpha, like
Y.
variable or something.
I did alpha y equals and then picked option 1.
But that's the same thing. Right?
Okay, that's, yeah, if you have another shortcut, that's okay. Yeah, would you say alpha and var or alpha and
The
x?
one under mode just.
Okay, sure. You could do that too. I didn't know that shortcut. Okay, so now we have two angles remaining, right? Which angle do we need to solve for next with two angles remaining? Smaller of the two, yes. So if I go up here, which angle is going to be the smaller, x or z? X, and we know that because x, the side x is smaller than the side z. Very good. So here you could either do the law of cosines again, or what I'd prefer, I'm going to write a law of sines because it's the less complicated formula. So I'll do sine of 100.95 over 12 equals to sine of angle x over 5. So we'll do some cross multiply. That gives me 12 times sine of angle x equals 5 times sine of 100.95. We'll divide both sides by 12. And then to get rid of that sine out front, what do I have to do? Sine inverse. And now it's just calculator time. So sine inverse of 5. Oops, that's not what I want to do. So I instead use alpha in that button.
I've done it on Isaac's calculator. So.
I don't know. It probably is something. There's probably another
one. It's
one.
on the new ones, because on the actual calculator there's a
Oh, okay.
sign, so it's at least on.
Okay, so my older operating system on this display model might not have that shortcut. That's okay. So 5 times, and notice I just went up and grabbed the number rather than try to type all of those decimals in. And enter, so I get 2415. And then angle Z, since I have 2 of the 3, I can just do 180 minus those other 2. And again, I'm not going to copy them. I'm just going to go up and grab them from my screen. And 5490 is the other one. Miriam, how's that feel? You said you wanted a representative, didn't you? I thought it was you. You said to pick one that was like, are you happy? Okay, Bladen, does that work for you? You're pleased? Okay. Kate.
Number 16, chapter 6.
Sure. So we're using half angle identities. So first thing I would do is I'm going to rewrite that as just in degrees, because it just tends to make my life a little bit easier. So that gives me 195. So it says half angle, so I want to 195 is half of 390. And now I'm going to go to my identity sheet, look at my half angle identities, and write down the one for sine. Let's take a minute here and figure out whether I want the plus or minus. I might as well do it right now so I don't have to carry that all the way through. To do that, I know that I'm looking at 195. So if I draw a 195 degree angle, it's down here in quadrant 3. According to All Silly Turtles Crawl, what is sine in quadrant 3? Is it going to be positive or negative? Negative. So we'll drop the plus from that plus or minus. And now what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to evaluate cosine of 390. Now I notice that 390 is not a unit circle angle. So what I'm going to do is going to find a unit circle angle that's coterminal to it. So minus 360 gives me 30 degrees. So I'm going to go and find cosine of 30 on my unit circle. Cosine of 30 is root 3 over 2. So far, so good. So all I need to do now is get this into an appropriate form for my answer. All the tricky parts is done. I'm just going to do a little simplifying now. The thing I don't like about it is I have a fraction inside of a fraction. So what I need to do is I need to multiply by 2 to the top and bottom, but I can't multiply a regular 2 inside of a square root. So I'll just put a square root around the whole thing. And now I can multiply the 2 in. So I have 2 minus root 3 all over 4. One last thing I have to worry about is, technically speaking, I have a square root in the denominator, right? But the square root of 4, hey, I know what that is. It's just 2. And the one thing that we had talked about before is that you want to be careful about how you're drawing your square roots here, because as the person grading this, it needs to be really clear that on this step, the square root is over the entire fraction. And on this step, the square root's only in the top of the fraction. Right? So I will be picky about that. If you're not being super neat, you may get dinged a point or something there because it's not clear to me whether you did that or not. So just to give you fair warning. Did you guys get what I'm saying? You see how in the first fraction it's clear the radical's over the entire fraction. On the second fraction it's clear it's only in the numerator. I will be looking for stuff like that and be picky about that. But I feel like it's okay because we're talking about it now, right? I'm giving you fair warning that that's something I'm going to care about. Kate, feel good?
Yes.
Sure. All right, you guys ready to do this quiz? The good news is you're going to get a partner. The bad news is that I've randomly assigned the partners. Nico isn't here. Is there anyone else on the list that is or doesn't on the list? Is anybody missing? They're like, hey, my name's not up there. No? Jake, you can join someone else's group. Where you want to go? Hunter. Okie doke. All right, you guys can get up and move. So you're sitting by your partner, and I'll be by to pass out a quiz to you guys once you're settled. No, but if you have you'll need this guy probably. If you have your equation sheet, somebody in your group should have one of these.
I got one. Nick, you're good, right? You got it?
I mean, I put the formulas on the quiz that you need, but you probably want the unit circle, so just use the equation sheet, it's fine. Alright. Use 2. One per group is fine. Oh, I thought you were starting to say to say something to me. No, I thought you were getting ready to ask me something. In case you were wondering, so I wrote that right. The groups were randomly generated. So just one per group is fine. Make sure you put both names on your sheet, or all 3 names if you're in a 3-person. If you guys take a minute here and look under number 2, there's like a list of blanks right under the number 2. You guys see the list of blanks under number 2? Yeah, those shouldn't be there, it's just a typo, so you can ignore it. The answers for number 2 are below the actual question. You get what I'm saying? Okay, I'm going to shut up now. That's right. Why?